Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Formula S, the SWW show's Formula One podcast. We got a big one.
Yeah, fat.
We got 5 races to talk about because we haven't done one of these in a bit. So, we have got Belgium, Netherlands, Italy, Singapore, and Japan to talk about. So, let's kick it off with Belgium, the first race back from the spring break, from the summer break. And this, going into this race, I remember kind of the attitude being, okay, how fast can Verstappen lock up the title? Like, it wasn't a matter of who. It was just, okay, when's it going to happen? Because we haven't seen a dominant season like this in a long time. Probably 3 years.
Mm-hmm.
And everyone else just kind of be like, there was no clear second. It wasn't like the Mercedes years where, the second driver, whoever that was going to finish second. Right? It was kind of up in the air of who was going to do what. And kind of that up in the airedness reared its head when Hamilton made some serious contact on Alonso and kind of flew his car. And I don't have a ton of notes on this.
This was definitely a lighter race.
It's also only 44 laps because the laps are so long. So when you watch the 7-minute highlight video that F1 puts out, it can kind of jump around quite a bit. But this is also the first time that we have seen a F1 race with the new Eau Rouge and Radeon reprofiling. And these cars with that setup, it looks like they're just on light speed. It looks ridiculous in a good way. But Verstappen's push towards the end through the middle and end of this race, because he started mid-pack after some penalties, engine penalties, I believe. Just proves how this is peak Vettel at Red Bull during his stretch of 4 championships, where on his day it was basically just how far behind is second going to be. It wasn't a matter. He could start in the back and still win by 20 seconds.
Which is wild.
Yeah. Dude, when Red Bull gets it and they have a driver that they can really get behind and can understand the car, they're unbeatable. Mercedes just kind of used their technical knowledge to get ahead of everyone for a little bit, but now Red Bull is kind of, I'm not going to say skirted the rules, but definitely pushed the boundaries with their car. So, but the Gasly, Ocon, Vettel train that they had through out of Poulan and into, or not Poulan, all the turns at Spa are named. Them going through Eau Rouge, Radeon, and then down the Kemmel Straight, side by side pretty much the whole time, either in a train going through Eau Rouge and Radeon, or as they started to fan out. It's so fun to watch these cars now, because they can actually drive next to each other and really battle, not just rely on DRS. But overall, it was a pretty not super interesting race in the grand scheme of things. Max's win puts him up 93 points ahead of his teammate Perez in second.
Is that the biggest difference of anyone realistically, or like of teammates?
Um,
Because like that's a pretty big difference points wise.
I mean, like during the Mercedes dominance, it was a pretty big difference too, like between Hamilton and whoever, whether it be Rosberg or Bottas. Um, but
Hmm.
I mean, it's a big gap between first and second, yes, but I don't think it's the biggest, and it could be bigger. But speaking of things that could be bigger but probably shouldn't, Zandvoort, the track that they race at for the Dutch Grand Prix, could be bigger. Probably shouldn't. Um, its location though is awesome. Um, I don't know if you watched the highlights or because they don't really show it. This track is basically on the beach.
That's pretty cool.
Like it's in between a couple dunes. Um, so it has the it shares the fun with um, well, Qatar and then Bahrain, where it's sand that gets on the track that can screw up things. Uh,
Interesting.
yeah.
That
So
there's some so it's interesting because since that's a unique problem in this track, it's funny to me because like it scored the same, but like obviously some cars will just kind of could have an advantage if you kind of build your car for this one race in mind.
I mean, it doesn't really do much. Like you lose a little bit of traction, but I mean, it's no different from like if it gets really hot and the track gets slick. It's kind of the same thing. Where you're just losing a little bit of traction on the tire. It's not necessarily aero dependent. Um, but it does give this really cool, like, swooping feel like the track is truly alive and it's following the landscape really well. And this is a track that I'd really love to go to, um, just to see it because it's incredible. And you'll have to go back and watch the race highlights. Magnussen saves what could have been a gnarly crash and ends up just like smacking the back tire and being fine. Like he was going for basically brakes locked up. He was going to crash head first and probably get thrown back to the track. And instead, he somehow got the car corrected and saved a really gnarly crash. As I said, there's a lot of undulation to this track, and it's one of the few tracks where there's actual camber to a lot of the turns. So, to those that don't know what that means, basically it's like a NASCAR track. So they're banked, which, funnily enough, is the thing that kind of killed F1 in the States back in '04 was the banking at Indianapolis. And the final turn is, I believe it's 18 or 19 degrees, so it's pretty steep, and so it allows a really unique, because we don't see this very often on F1 tracks, a unique way to overtake. So you can take a high line through a turn, which you can carry a little more speed through. It's longer to take the outside radius than to slow down and cut the corner, but you can kind of slingshot off the top of the turn. So use a little NASCAR technique there. Ferrari though continued to screw up pit stops, which I still don't know how they can't figure it out. To the point where Paris had to drive over a Ferrari wheel gun because it was just in his way. Like it was incredible, and obviously they had issues with it because it got run over because dipshit couldn't keep it in their box. It's just yeah.
But yeah, also like it seems at this point like hits are just kind of like so standard that like to me would be one of the first things you'd master. I don't know, like it just seems shocking that danger anything.
It's just I don't know if it's well. So here's something that it might be. Ferrari is one of the teams that uses a fully well, it's not fully digital, but everything is digital in the gun.
Mm-hmm.
So it lights up and it stops, or no, it keeps going if your finger's on the trigger. When your finger lets off the trigger, it switches to the other direction. So you could have an issue where you take your finger off and you didn't have the nut all the way off, and then you're basically putting it back in, which obviously is a huge issue. But and then they also have a light system that they kind of pioneered where it was all four corners, and it was just based off I think a torque sensor in the wheel guns themselves. But yeah, it's certainly an interesting situation there. Along with their Italian brethren, Alpha Tauri, who I watched this race, most of it live. So I watched this whole Sonoda situation unfold where he was slowing down and it's like he thought it was something like he lost power. And then he thought it was a diff. And then some people were speculating that maybe it was a tire that was loose. Which, if it was a loose tire, the team can get fined. If it was anything else, obviously, the FIA is going to kind of be like, well, whatever happened, happened. But if they release the car with a loose tire, that's a fine. A pretty decent one. And it was kind of timed perfectly to let Red Bull figure stuff out. But there was another very unfortunate retirement. Bottas retired like just across the finish line. And it screwed, I believe it was Ocon and Sainz. It screwed Sainz. Sainz was going for an overtake on Ocon, thought he was passed, and then had to give the position up because he overtook under a waved yellow. And so that obviously caused a safety car. Ferrari, again, pit problems. They had an unsafe release this time, so at least they had all the tires on. And there was something I found very interesting watching back the highlights of the race. On the restart after this safety car caused by Bottas' retirement, Hamilton gets blitzed by Verstappen. Like, Verstappen's 4 cars clear before they get to turn 1. And
that's like I saw this highlight. That was wild.
Like, it's not a talent thing, right? Like, Hamilton has the talent to not have that happen to him. So I think it's just Red Bull was like, fire everything and get into that turn in first. Like, use all your overtake, use all your ERS, use everything. We want you to be into turn 1 first. And it worked out. Verstappen hung on for the win. Obviously, it was it was a good one because it was his home race. It was also his home race, which, funnily enough, they were on the same row on the starting grid. Nick DeVries filled in for Alex Albon, who had an emergency appendectomy, like, I think it was the Friday of race weekend.
Jesus.
He wasn't feeling good, and then he went to the hospital, had an appendectomy, and they're like, "Hey, Nick, we need you to drive the car." And he's like, "Cool, qualify 8th." And Verstappen had some penalties that took him down to 7th, but the two Dutchmen, one of them won, one of them scored points, so a good start for Nick de Vries's F1 career. But the Verstappen win makes his gap to second 109, where Leclerc and Perez are behind him. They were tied even at the end of the Dutch Grand Prix. And now we get into literally the fastest race on the calendar, the Italian Grand Prix.
My boys. My boys.
This race, like, don't get me wrong, Montreal is fun. I'd love to go to the Dutch Grand Prix. I want to visit the Italian Grand Prix just to see the fans.
Yeah, no, you're right. You're so right.
I want to see the Tifosi. Because I don't think there's any other country that I can think of where one sport means so much to one team and the entire population gets behind them.
Is that not like akin to like most of the world and like the World Cup type stuff in a lot of ways?
Maybe, but that happens every 4 years.
Right, no, that's fair.
Like there's some weirdness there. This is every race in Italy. The Tifosi are there. And when I mean there, I mean there. Sold out. It was like 105,000 people on race day. Crazy. And yeah, so Nick de Vries was still in the car for the Italian Grand Prix because it was only a week after the Dutch. And going through the race, the Ferraris just looked strong, which I would hope they would, but beatable. You know, it felt like somebody could exploit, because you knew Ferrari strategy was going to fail. It always does. And it felt like they were going to make a mistake somewhere. That the drivers weren't going to make a mistake, but the team was going to make a mistake. So it's like, okay, somebody could win this race over the Ferraris. And, I mean, Max had a great charge through the field. Like, another very good drive up through the field. Only to really be overshadowed by Sainz's just like, I think he started last or on the last row. Just relentless. He was just picking everyone off. That was a drive that, okay, he didn't win the race. But if you want to point to like a top 5 drive of Carlos Sainz, the 2022 Italian Grand Prix might end up being on that list. I mean, obviously, unless he's got what, 2? So unless he gets 3 more wins in his career. Red Bull continued just to have Max's car dialed in. You know, he just, it's one of these things where like they can somehow build a car that's good in every situation. Like if we look at the Mercedes dominance, right? Those cars were really just designed to be out front. You know, they were designed around clean air. They weren't designed to drive in traffic. They weren't really designed to follow anyone. They were just designed to be out front. This Red Bull car, it's like, you know, instead of being a jack of all trades, master of none, It's like they somehow discovered to be a master of all trades. Because it's fast, it's nimble, it can follow, it can lead. It's good on tires. Like, Max was just able to basically drive away from everyone. Didn't matter the car. He was just like, see you later. Daniel Ricciardo retired with, I believe it was 4 laps to go. Safety car comes out, and the race will finish under safety car, with Max Verstappen in the lead, Leclerc finishing second. It felt like an overly cautious response to what we had happen in Abu Dhabi last year, where everyone was pissed off that they let him race for a lap.
I was going to say, I remember Abu Dhabi being a contentious race, I think is the nice way to call it.
So, this year has kind of felt like there has been more of the kind of corrective approach from the FIA, trying to steer the ship back towards the rulebook, if you will, and maybe trying to make up for some past transgressions. But, with Max's win, his lead grows to 126 over Leclerc, meaning if he wins and gets the fastest lap in Singapore, he wins the title. So, let's get on to the first of potentially multiple title races. This is Sebastian Vettel's final visit at a track that he has literally owned. Let me pull up. It's ridiculous. It's
actual question: how are they allowed to own tracks?
No, he doesn't own the track. But this is a guy that won 5 of the 21 races. Now, granted, there have been 21 races because there was a stretch where it was held from 66 to 73. It came back in 08, which there was some controversy behind. Here has been the results ever since. So 08, Alonso wins. 09, Hamilton. 10, Alonso. 11, Vettel. 12, Vettel. 13, Vettel. 14, Hamilton. 15, Vettel. 16, Rosberg. 17, Hamilton. 18, Hamilton. 19, Vettel. Didn't have one in 20. Didn't have one in 21. 22 is the one we're talking about. So, I mean, you had what? 1, 2, 5, right? So he had 5 wins since 2008. And it wasn't held for 2 years. For such a short amount of time that the races have been held. What is that? 10, 12 races, and he's won 5. There's not too many other drivers out there that can have that kind of say. It's just he can always figure it out for Singapore, no matter what. He's been able to do it. But it looked like it was going to be even more fun because a massive storm rolled through. So we got a wet Singapore race, which we don't normally see because, believe it or not, the Singapore government will seed the clouds in the area to make them rain outside of the track. They will mess with Mother Nature to make sure that it doesn't rain at the track. And it did. And it was a big one. And the pressure may have gotten to Verstappen because started the race, turns out he was in the wrong engine mode. Which, if everyone else is in just off the line mode and you're like mid race mode, not going to be a pretty sign. He fell back quite a bit. Albon makes his return to, I guess, is kind of the closest version of a home race for him because he's Thai, or his mom's Thai. So this is kind of a home race for him. Saves the car in a pretty crazy spin, and his Williams teammate Nicholas Latifi, who it was announced that he will not be returning to Williams next year, pulls a Latifi move, squeezes Guan Yu Zhou, makes him crash, gets a flat on his car, and wonders what happened. Mm-hmm. Sorry, bud. Unfortunately, another one of the retirements was Fernando Alonso. I say unfortunately. This was his record-breaking 350th Grand Prix.
Jesus.
Yeah. And he took 2 or 3 years off. So, he an old boy. Tsunoda's first crash, I say first because he did end up crashing out, was a very unfortunate one. This is something that I think city circuits are more prone to, where it's very easy to lock the brakes, especially in the wet, and then you're just along for the ride. Like, the cars don't turn because they don't have ABS. So you just slide however momentum's taking you. And he just, boop, like 80 miles an hour. Albon had the same thing happen to him. Just, you lock up the front and you just slide. Now, Hamilton had it happen to him. Had some Hamilton luck occur. Because he was somehow fine. It looked like he hit the barrier pretty hard. But his front wing was, I think, the only thing broken. Tsunoda ends up crashing out pretty hard, causes the race to go under safety car, and starts the timer. For those that don't know, F1 races have a 3-hour window that they are under. And because the start of the race got delayed, they started the timer whenever. It's normally when race start is supposed to happen. They'll start the 3-hour timer, and you can fit the race in at any time, but you have a hard out at that 3 hours. So, if it gets close, they switch the race to a timed race instead of a lapped race. And especially if it seems like there's too many laps to complete in the time frame. And the timer starts. So this is now a race against the clock. And that pressure kind of got to Verstappen. He locked it up and going for a pass. Slides in the runoff. Does a nice little donut. And has to pit to switch tires. This next note is probably the greatest example so far this year that Russell is just a whiny bitch. And maybe not as good as people think. He full on just squeezed Schumacher and forced himself to make contact. Comes over the radio thinking it's, Schumacher's fault. His engineer goes, "No, you ran into him." Like, his engineer was like, "Nah, son, you're not trying that." And funnily enough, there were a lot of people on Twitter after the race with that soundbite going, man, Russell's kind of a dick. I'm like, yeah, didn't know that. Um, it was just because he was at Williams that people kind of gave him a lot of slack. Verstappen drives back into the points, and during his kind of push back towards the front, he gets behind the guy that runs Singapore, Sebastian Vettel, follows him through as Hamilton makes another mistake and goes wide. And as he's doing that, Sergio Perez crosses the line to win, breaking Max's win streak.
Ooh.
Now, here's the interesting thing. I know you have the notes up in front of you. Who do you think had the win streak before? Like, if you had to take a guess, who do you think would have had the most wins in a row?
Okay, so it's obviously not Max. I would have thought like Verstappen could have.
I would have assumed you would have guessed, like, maybe Hamilton had it.
I guess that's why I should have guessed Hamilton. I don't know. Hamilton felt like too obvious of an answer.
Yeah.
That's part of it. That's what like it can't be because that'd be too obvious.
No, instead we have to go back to the season of absolute dominance where Sebastian Vettel rolled off 9 wins in a row. Count them, 9. And they were all in the second half. Max's streak was at 5 before this. And I said, as I saw the results coming out, I was like, oh, Singapore went out on its back for Vettel. Like, it put Vettel over one last time. Even though he didn't win, it recognized who was the best at the track. But Verstappen's result means he does lose some ground in the championship race. So he has a 104-point lead. So can't quite clinch it, which means we are on to the track with the best fan base, Japan.
Japan.
This is where I want that Street Fighter soundboard that had the countries. Japan. It was always my favorite. Like, that was my favorite soundbite from that game, from Street Fighter 2, was Japan. Yet another wet race, but this one was very wet. And I have to change the one name on here. But Carlos Sainz had a very interesting crash on lap 1, where like he somehow ended up on one of the runoff roads that comes back onto the track and just smacks his ass into the wall. And as a result of trying to avoid that wreck, Pierre Gasly catches a Rolex sign from going off the track. And it's pretty it's always funny to see that when cars catch the advertisements, because it's just ridiculous. Just a stupid way to watch it. Just think, well, all right, guess he's gonna, try to plow off some water. But it was, it led to probably the most interesting situation. The race gets red flagged because drivers can't see, and there's a lot of cleanup that needs to be done. while he was driving around with a Rolex banner on the front of his car, Pierre Gasly passes a tractor that's just on the track trying to recover a car. Now, for those that may have seen the discourse on Twitter about this situation and don't know the context, the 2014 race, I believe it was. Yeah, 2014 had kind of a similar scenario where it was raining like crazy, cars were going off, they had to get the tractors out to recover them out of the sand and all that. And it was under the safety car at the time. And Jules Bianchi, who was driving for, I believe it was Manor Marussia at the time, he hydroplaned, locked his brakes, and ended up going underneath a car that was being recovered.
Jesus Christ.
Yes, he ended up dying from the crash. Horrible situation. It wasn't too dissimilar from what Gasly had to avoid, where that could have happened to him. Now, granted, the halo's in place, which was partly kind of kickstarted by the Bianchi crash, and it was just ridiculous. Like, the number of people saying, "How did this happen?" Like, especially at this track, right? Like, this is the track that last claimed a driver's life with an extremely similar scenario. It's just crazy. Apparently, it also happened at Singapore that there was a tractor out on the track to recover a car while cars were still going by. So, it's not just a Japan problem, but, like, come on, guys. And I saw a video this morning of there was a marshal trying to recover Sainz's car from his crash. Meanwhile, cars are still going at speed past the crash. Like, it was just under yellow. The race hadn't been red flagged yet. So this dude's out there trying to pull Sainz's car out of the way, and there's cars not hauling ass, but going fairly fast past him. It's like, you guys just need to... There were some communication issues going on there. And it could have led to a very dangerous situation. Thankfully, it didn't. I have a feeling, though, that some of those rules are going to be switched around. Speaking of things switching around, the race to switch tires was on later in the race, and it led to a very interesting leader in this race. Mick Schumacher led for approximately 4 meters. But he can say that he has now led a Formula One race. And it's a pretty big one. You know, he has got a lot to live up to. You know, obviously his dad being 7-time champion. And it's good to see, right? Like, it's good to see that he got some time in the spotlight. Here is a interesting note. Pierre Gasly has received 2 penalty points because he was going too fast under the red flags. Meanwhile, there was a tractor on the track.
Right.
Like, the FIA is trying to maybe go, like, it wasn't, this or that. You were in the wrong. So, just a weird situation with that. And the other thing that led to a weird situation was Charles Leclerc got a 5-second time penalty due to a cheeky move with Sergio Perez, where he kind of went off the track and increased his advantage because he was leading over Perez going into the turn, and then increased his advantage. That 5-second penalty means that your champion for 2022 is Max Verstappen. His 12th win of the season gets him title number 2. Perez moves into second, is 1 point ahead of Leclerc, so that could lead to an interesting kind of race towards the end, right? Like now, it's now a race between Leclerc and Perez, right? It's nothing else. It's which one of those two can get second, because if somehow Leclerc can salvage it, that's great. It'll still be a disappointment for Ferrari because they potentially had a chance. If Perez can do it, I think it's a great result for him. But Max Verstappen is now 2 wins away from the record. So he will, in theory, as long as they don't try to make his car a little more reliable and maybe not so much the speed, right?
Mm-hmm.
Short of that, he will break the record for the most wins in a year, which currently sits at 13. I think he can do it. I think this is a very good schedule, because we have got coming up the U.S. race. Excuse me, Mexico, Brazil, and Abu Dhabi. And 4 races to get 2 wins. He's already winning at a little over a 50% clip. So if he can keep that up, he's got the record. And yeah, I don't see them saying, "Oh, Max, just take it easy." Time will tell, obviously, if he's able to do it, which of course we will discuss in our next episode, if he is able to do it. But I think, unless, Mike, you have something to add, I believe that's going to wrap up.
That's going to wrap up one of our bigger
5
races.
Race recap.
Damn, AJ, good job.
We basically did a quarter of the season in one episode.
Beautiful. So what do we got left? A couple more races?
We have got 4 races left.
Beautiful. My guess is we'll come back at the end of those and discuss the final part of this season.
Actually, let me check the calendar real quick, because we might have...
It might line up what show I'm thinking too.
Yes, there will be one during something.
Yes, that might line up perfectly.
Yeah. So we might do a live watch-in on Twitch or something like that, where we just do like a camera on us, but
we will figure it out. But yeah. Well, good. Well, thank you everyone for joining us. Keep
Yes.
track for everything else we do, and go behind a race car today.
Go vroom vroom in the zoom zoom.
We are happy to announce that this episode of the SW Show is partially brought to you by Humble Bundle. Well, not really. We are part of the Humble Bundle referral program, and we just wanted to say that if you like really cheap games and maybe helping charity pending the Humble thing going on, all you have to do is go to humblebundle.com/?partner equals SWW. That's right, humblebundle.com/?partner equals SWW. And you just do your normal stuff, and it just kind of helps us get a couple bucks here and there. Maybe it helps AJ get his lights, maybe it's Mike camera, maybe we actually pay Corey for helping us out. But again, if you're going to go buy games anyway, it might be worth checking out. The SW Show and all of its affiliate podcasts are podcast by me, Mike Maroney, and AJ Losi, sometimes by our contributors, including Corey King. You can follow the SWW Show on social media at the SWW Show, or sooner or later you go to patreon.com/SWW to help us out. Thank you. We hope you enjoy the rest of your day.